listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 184. And I am your executive editor, Ryan McQuade. Joining me today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Good morning, good afternoon, or is it evening? I don't know yet.
It's evening. Anyway, okay. Our TV editor, Tyler Doster.
Hello.
And Sophia Ciminello.
Hello.
Oh my God. We're not talking about movies today. Well, we're going to talk about just movies real quick. But mostly the show is talking about the two big finales, series finales that happened last night on HBO. Also on Max, but mostly HBO. Barry and Succession. And then we'll talk a little bit about our thoughts on those and all the feelings that we had from these great shows. We'll talk a little bit about our Emmy coverage, and then we'll get out of here. We're recording this on Memorial Day, and so we all had the day off. So we got to mostly just kind of take in the emotional damage of these two shows from last night. But first, to kind of round off everything that's happened on the website the last 2 weeks, the Cannes Film Festival wrapped up all of its proceedings over there. All of our great writing is up on the website. You can go catch up on that. Erik was covering the winners this past weekend, and Erik, we had let me tell you if you heard this one before. Neon won the Palme d'Or. Have you heard about that? Has that ever happened before, Erik?
You know, it's almost kind of suspicious now at this point, because it's been 4 years in a row, because we don't count 2020 since it was canceled. 4 years in a row that Neon has already had the winner before. You know, they didn't pick it up afterwards. They had it. So yeah, I am curious yellow.
But I heard the film's really good. Did we have a review up on the site for it?
Yeah, Sabina did the review for both Zone of Interest, which was the grand prize winner from A24, and Anatomy of a Fall, which was the Palme winner.
Yeah. And a lot of people sort of as kind of the odds-on favorite might have been Zone of Interest, the Jonathan Glazer film. A lot of critics wanted that to happen, but that's not how how the jury system works. It
has more to do with how awards can be distributed, which is why most everybody thought that Sandra Hüller was going to win actress, and if that had happened, it would not have been able to win the Palme. So, you know, people were, and myself included, trying to kind of find ways for the math to math out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was either really going to be Anatomy or Zone. Those were the choices.
Yeah. And then but ultimately it's Neon 4 years in a row. I don't think it's too crazy because they buy or select some really good films and put them out there and kind of the winners that they have won. It makes kind of total sense once we finally see them in the fall. It'll be nice to have that
organic selections and pickups and productions that
I mean, it's organic, but also helps that the director of their last Palme d'Or winner was also the president. And
also too, this isn't like this has happened before with other studios, just not a studio that's only 5 years old.
Third female director to win the Palme d'Or as well too. So that's great as well.
Yes.
But yeah, all of our coverage is up on the website. I can't wait to see. I know that Sophia and myself and Erik were all texting each other. We're like, well, looks like we might get this at Telluride, or we might get this somewhere, you know. So we were just kind of like wondering its destination already, especially you know, some of these bigger titles that were in competition, out of competition. You know, as well. So it'll be really great to see most of the films that usually win these prizes, they end up along the trail in the fall, and so it'll be fun to see
we'll definitely see a very healthy handful of these in competition and UCR players at Telluride, We always do, and especially Neon and A24. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, they always have a huge presence.
Great. It's gonna be a very
I'm
good
so
time.
excited.
Yeah. I'm in particularly just hearing about Anatomy in a Fall and the, just the synopsis of the film. It sounds very interesting. And then obviously Zone of Interest. I'm like dying to see the new Jonathan Glazer film because I just love that man. He's what an insane human being of a director. And so it's really nice to see that they both won the top two. And then also Greatest Film won a couple of prizes as well. And heard a lot of good things about that. Elemental closed out the festival. We have a review up on the website. Kind of middle of the road. A lot of those reviews, not a good hand for Disney.
Great response to Elemental.
Yeah, it just, it is what it is. That's why none of us picked that movie to get,
what a fantastic pull quote that would be.
Yeah, hopefully they spell everything right. But anyway, I think that Elemental, it's not looking good for its box office either. It's not tracking well. It's Pixar's in its flop era. So but anyway, speaking of things
is eating.
Yeah. Before we move on, can I just say about Can? I'd like to just say I think it is so funny that they made Sam Levinson and The Weeknd have made such a big deal about this show. And I will never get over at Rolling Stone, did we offend you? And apparently they really did offend people with how bad it is.
Well, that will be what we talk about in 5 weeks when it becomes our latest obsession, right? No, we're not going to do that.
It's so unfortunate that we said goodbye to 2 great shows and The Idol will be on next week.
That is the replacement.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
what a choice.
To go from The Last of Us to Succession to that is a real choice.
It's definitely going to be a what you order online versus what you got kind of moment. It's like
the rough Amazon box. Yeah.
No, it's like your It's like your new girlfriend versus what your last looked like.
It will be interesting.
Baby.
It will be interesting to see, I guess, the conversation that surrounds it, obviously outside of just, critics and whatnot, but when audiences actually get to see it and how it is taken in and how it's most likely because of people that love those camps or love The Weeknd or whatever might end up defending it. It's going to be a mess. That thing is a train wreck. It's only 5 episodes, right? Which is I think the best thing for it. That's what I've read. I mean, 5 episodes is better than like 10 and having to deal with 2.5 months of it. So
no, 5 episodes. That's a limited series territory.
Yeah, well, that's if they don't renew it for a second season. Which
no, you have to have 6 episodes.
I was going to say,
you do
a drama or comedy series. So it would.
But even if it, so if it has a second season and if it has 5 episodes too, it's again another limited series.
It'll be in a very weird middle ground murky spot because you cannot be in drama or comedy with less than 6 episodes.
Okay. All right. Well, I did not.
It's all fine. This hypothetical won't matter.
It's hypothetical. It's not getting nominated for shit.
Anything.
I mean, we're not.
But this was fun.
It was nice to see you enjoying the show. All right. Speaking about great shows and great finales and great moments of television, great water cooler events, let's talk about Barry in succession. We'll go with Barry first. Just talk about that, and then we'll also. For our listeners out there towards the end of it, get into a little bit of a Emmy conversation over the overall comedy categories. I saw 7 of the 8 episodes like a month and a half ago, as did, I believe, Tyler and Eric as well.
Yeah.
And they didn't give us the final episode until it premiered. So it
the
was like
press screener for it came after I watched the actual.
Yeah, like 20 minutes after. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. My press screener came in as it was on.
It was pretty funny.
I love the first 7 and 8 episodes, and also just want to tell all the listeners out there, this is gonna be full spoiler conversations because But in case we get hate mail, why'd you spoil everything? You didn't tell us. Well, now you know. I loved everything about this season. I've really loved the show. I love how it's become more and more dark as it's gone on. I think the time jump really I know that like Eric and I have talked about time jumps in the past, and they can be a bit of a cop out, but I think for this that they really worked, and it wasn't just like a 10-minute sort of thing for their time jump. It actually they explored the world within that time jump and allowed it to evolve their characters and heighten everything towards the end. That being said, I'm curious what everybody thought about this finale. So Sophia, I'll kick it over to you. You watched it week to week, so you weren't like us. You didn't have to wait like us. So what were your overall impressions on season 4 and getting up to the finale? What'd you think of how it ended?
Yeah, I really like season 4. So Barry is always my Monday show. I watch it like Monday mornings before I start my work day, which is always a choice considering the tone of the show and how I don't think it really feels like a comedy anymore. I think there's certainly comedic moments to it, but it's really just imbued with this darkness throughout. And I think that Bill Hader has shown us through this series and especially into this season how great of a director he is and how smart he is and how savvy he is as a lover of TV and film. And I know that he loves the Coen brothers, and I see that love all over this series, and especially in this finale. I think it had a lot of moments that brought to mind some of their films and just what he's been, I think, trying to say throughout the entire series. I actually think he really pulled it off here. There was a moment in the finale where I actually, because I wasn't really paying attention to how time was moving in the episode and how much time had passed and how much we had left, I thought he was going to pull a David Chase and end it like The Sopranos with that cut to black after Barry is shot. But I think getting the time jump that we did, that fast forward, and getting to see what that biopic looked like was it was completely unexpected to me, and it left me with a really strange feeling, I think, about fame and violence and the reactions to those themes. And those are things that have been explored throughout the entire series, but I feel like he really nailed it with the way that it ended. And I think just in those final moments where we see the expression on John's face, where it almost feels there is sadness there, but there's also some sense of relief almost, or it almost feels cathartic for us as viewers and for that character. So I thought they really nailed it.
Yeah, I agree with you too, Sophia. I kind of sitting on the 7 episodes and where they're going. And yes, obviously I think that the series has gone more dramatic, but weirdly enough, I thought the finale was quite hilarious. I mean, you're talking about that the stuff with Fuchs and the shootout was really, with Hank and while the the tragedy of Hank dying there too. I just thought that the way that the gun shootout was set up, it was hilarious. And then I thought of, some of the pieces that Gene's reading on Deadline and everything of how quick it all kind of turns around. That's really funny. And you mentioned the Coen brothers having Stephen Root and other people that have worked with the Coen brothers in this cast, but then I mean the way Sally kind of turns down the guy, the one teacher, she's like, no, I don't want coffee with you. I've learned from that mistake. But then the whole like idea of that Gene got tricked by the FBI in believing that Barry's and his story was good enough to get like Daniel Day-Lewis and Mark Wahlberg and make this an Oscar movie, when in all actuality their film is a schlocky Jim Cummings star-led horror action film. It felt like The Mask Collector.
Incredible.
Incredibly hilarious. I haven't laughed that hard at this show in a long time, because it's again a very dark and deeply disturbing show. And rightfully so, because it's great. But man, I thought they nailed it. Eric, you've been holding out on the just like me. So what did you think of the final episode?
I thought it was pretty genius, and I feel kind of bad that it was a little bit in the shadow of Succession and the absolute conversation dominance it had. But no, it was genius. I think it was a perfect progression of the series, and also a show that absolutely needed to end when it ended. 4 seasons was, I can't imagine it going much further when you have extremely high concept TV shows that have to kind of keep escalating when you've already started kind of at a 10. It really it's too easy to lose the thread and become absurd instead of just kind of weirdly cool and satirical. And yeah, I mean, it's Coen brothers like through and through. But I wouldn't want any more than what we got, because it would really lose that. And we were talking about those time jumps in the podcast this morning with Christina, and how normally I am pretty much against them because I think they're a big cheat. I don't think that's the case here. I think it's absolutely perfect, because we would not have that absolutely flawless final shot without it. And it was, we needed that. Seeing John as a teenager, growing up with what he thinks he knows the history of his father is, what he's been told, and then watching this movie, which, yes, that Jim Cummings thing was hilarious, by the way. That was fucking totally spot on. It is schlocky, but we also have to think and remember that this is Warner Brothers. We saw, all the Warner Brothers meetings that happened, and they made this movie.
Yeah.
Which also was giving, like, American Sniper kind of like, let's sort of really massively retell this fake hero story.
Yeah.
But he's watching this kind of knowing and thinking that this is what other people and the majority of people are going to see and know about his father, even if it's not true. So I think he gets to have a different kind of, maybe not spotlight, but this will be with him for like his entire life, wherever he goes. But the reaction is probably going to be more positive and allow him to have a semi-normal life in a way that maybe he wouldn't have before.
Gives him a little bit of closure, knowing that the world thinks of his father as a hero rather than thinking of him as a monster.
Yeah. And it wasn't a new movie, as we know, because he, it already had been out, and he just didn't watch it, wasn't allowed to watch it, all of the things.
Probably Sally did not let him stream that on on Netflix or whatever. Or on Max, as it would be.
Oh my God. It does feel like a
Max,
not go to theaters direct to release.
So it's like one of those like recent discovery things you find on iTunes for like $4.99 or whatever.
I was, though, a little disappointed that we didn't actually get Daniel Day-Lewis or even Mark Wahlberg, because that would have been so goddamn hilarious. Even though I don't ever need to see Mark Wahlberg on my screen, it would have been really funny.
I was about to say.
I mean, that was all
anyone but.
No, I know it was a ruse, but it was still kind of great.
It would have been great if DDL came out of retirement just for Barry, for like 30 minutes. Would have been perfect.
Okay, can we talk though a little bit how Daniel Day-Lewis and his long hair now looks like Gene Cusimano with his long hair now? Because that would have been really funny.
Something's happening, you guys.
When those pictures of
a vibe shift.
I was like, is something happening here?
Those outfits, the hat, everything.
It felt like a trick.
Yeah. But like just a random assortment of clothes found in a box, and he just put it on and said, "I'll go outside today." Which is great.
Perfect finale. I'm actually so glad with everything that happened with Sally, and that she was given a good and real story and not, I don't know, demonized the way that women in these stories can be and have been. And I thought she was fantastic. And Sarah Goldberg, fucking beyond.
She easily gets the happiest of endings of all the main characters that we've seen throughout it, obviously. But I had the privilege of actually watching this one first, because I was a little bit behind on Succession last night because of other stuff. So I did watch this one first before Succession. So I was.
Was it a privilege or was it a choice? Seems like it was a choice.
I mean, it was a choice out of my control, but also it was a privilege because honestly, it could have hurt the, I guess, the expectation. I mean, because of the heaviness of Succession, and we'll talk about here in a little bit, but there's so much meat on that bone that you almost kind of be like, oh, that's right, I got to watch Barry too tonight. So it was actually nice to watch that one first, and also I was really anticipating that one. Again, because when you write for all those people out there, when you write a review of 7 out of 8 episodes, and the 8th episode is also the series finale, and you're saying this is a really great television show, ... if it sticks the landing, and so you're waiting 7 weeks to find out if it sticks the landing or not. That's a lot of pressure on your review. But I just thought that they executed it perfectly. But it has been a little bit more divisive than I think Succession's finale, because of the time jumps, because of I guess the season in general, because the time jumps have actually been a point of contention for some people in not liking it in that 5th episode. But Tyler, I'm curious what you thought of the finale. You were watching it today, I believe, or you were sending us screenshots of a particular shot with Hank and Cristobal's statue that I think is honestly one of the shots of the episode, but and probably one of the shots of the series. But what did you think of the finale?
I loved it. So I did watch it last night. I watched it after Succession. I think my first thought was, after watching the whole show, the 4th season, and then specifically the finale, anyone who is confused about Bill Hader's Catholic upbringing probably shouldn't be anymore, because a key theme to me was, and I've talked about this with Erik a little bit, is the theme of atonement and redemption throughout all these characters, and how it very much, by the end, everyone is looking towards different things, grasping for different things, just to maybe atone, and or, like, I think with Hank, memorializing other people, including Cristobal. So I think all these characters were searching for something for this, other than Sally, who I think was just searching for relief. I think all the characters were searching for a way, either out or a way, to redeem themselves for what they know they had done. In my chat with Anthony Kerrigan, which is out on AwardsWatch now, we talked about this, about with him and Cristobal, Hank and Cristobal, how Hank did this. He created this memorialization of Cristobal, but was it genuine for Cristobal, or was it for Hank to feel better? And I think looking at every individual character in this finale, it makes you wonder on every single thing. I will say, I don't know if I'm the only one who thought this, but right before the shootout, when all of Hank's men were stepping onto their marks and everything, the only thing I could think was, can you find the wolves in this picture? Like, immediately.
Thank you, Martin Scorsese, for now having that always in
Thank
our
you, Martin
brain.
Scorsese.
Every time we see something now, we're just gonna be looking for wolves in a picture.
Yeah, Ryan mentioned this. I have been sending this to everybody, so if you know me, I'm so sorry. I'm absolutely obsessed with the framing of Hank grasping onto the hand of Cristobal and releasing it as he dies. Bill Hader is going to jail for that. We should specifically, I think we should do something about it, but we'll get to that later. But in a reality, Bill Hader is truly, in my opinion, somebody we should be watching, because I think he is somebody who, like Sophia said, understands cinema and television so well that it translates, his passion translates on screen. His his references are so easy to spot just because he wants you to see them. He's so proud of what he is doing, and that translates. And I think when you see a filmmaker doing something like that, it's really incredible to watch. And it shows through not the framing of every shot, how the story has progressed, and really these performances from these actors. And I think you can tell with them as well, they obviously loved working with this man, and they saw his vision for 4 seasons. But like you all have already said, I would just reiterate, I thought this finale was truly incredible. The whole show has been great. It's only gotten darker. I think it's truly hilarious at this point that it's still fighting in the comedy categories. But in a general sense, I just thought it was magnificent. Several frames are just burned into my brain, and they'll probably be there for the next couple of months. And I would just like to also give a super special shout out. I think Sarah Goldberg has been doing incredible work for 4 seasons, and I think if nothing else, she only topped herself this season. I think she was given such a complex character, and she really made a meal out of it.
Yeah. I mean, especially since, the fact that, like, when we see Sally in the flash forwards, she really doesn't want to be there. You know, obviously a lot of that is trapped in this isolation, and then also trapped as a mother and not being able to live out her dream. And then by the end, she becomes this teacher. She gets to do all the local productions there. She seems to have a good relationship with her son. It's detached away from Barry because of the fact that he's gone, but her purpose is sort of back into doing things that are more realistic for her, but also being able to not have to worry about I think particularly the danger that arises. I think that some of the best stuff too, honestly, within this season, and what I was so shocked about after the shootout was Stephen Root as Fuchs. I think that his performance is continuously the most underrated performance on this series, because everyone, I mean, obviously Kerrigan and Winkler and Goldberg and Hader get a lot of credit, but Fuchs is such an interesting character, in particular to the fact that it took him to go speak to Hank when he mentions about Barry's son, and that you think that it's all going to be this hate, or there's going to be, he's going to kill the kid or something. And no, there's this fatherly attachment that he has after all this stuff that has happened. The minute that he realizes that John is in trouble, the raven goes away, it flies away, and he becomes Fuchs again. He becomes essentially the father figure that had created this monster, this heartbroken hero, anti-hero, or protagonist that we at least have in this series. And I think that I agree with Sophia. I thought that the series was going to end the minute that Jean shot Barry, and it was our own Jacob Thornberry, a friend of ours, that wrote about this on Twitter today, and I thought about it, and I actually think it kind of makes total sense for this series, is that Barry's been chasing, even as he's about to go and shoot up and destroy everybody at this point at Hank's place, the idea of redemption and the idea of forgiveness and the idea of peace. And he finds it only at the hands of somebody that he truly loves and kind of trusts, and wanted initially, when we first find out in the series, a sense of trying to get him out of this world, and yet that person becomes his violent end. And I find that full circle to be just completely heartbroken. Obviously, Jean realizing that this is just a circle now of, I'm going to get framed for this. At least I can get some closure of knowing that the world is rid of Barry Berkman. And I think that I'm glad that it didn't end that way, because then we don't get all the awesome, amazing stuff that happens afterwards, deeply hilarious stuff. But yeah, I think that whole scene of Jean robbing Barry truly of any sort of redemption, but giving him his version of peace is really interesting. And also I my mouth was on the floor, because I just didn't think that Jean would be the one to kill Barry. That's
and it's rather unceremonious how it happened, which is again also very Coen Brothers like. It just fucking happens and then it's done. But we're talking about framing a lot. The number of scenes and episodes throughout the seasons that have these uncut single hold takes on very difficult, dramatic, complicated scenes, like the shootout in this, the shadow home invasion of Sally, many of the most complicated sequences aren't actually sequences, they're single shots, single scenes, and you don't have a moment to take a break from it, to look away from it, or it's not cut away from anything, and it just absolutely glues you to it. It's some genius choices.
Yeah. And that's that theme of atonement too, of like making the viewer sit with the characters and their decisions and the outcomes from their decisions. I think that that's so smart. I think like the Coens too, Bill Hader loves faces. And I liked how many extreme close-ups we got in this episode of, you know, actors like Stephen Root who maybe haven't gotten their due in the series as much as actors like Bill Hader. So I thought that that was another thing that I really loved. And yeah, that when Barry gets shot, I was really just, I mean, you come to, I think, expect big things from these HBO finales. Like no one is safe ever. But that one, it did really throw me.
He killed the titular character. I mean,
The titular role.
yeah.
And the Chekhov's gun of it all too. It was just, it's brilliant. Yeah.
I think
really
it
is.
kept us too from being too cynical, which really easy to do with
Mm-hmm.
watching a show and being a step ahead of it.
But the
The timing was a surprise, but it not a I guess not a bad shock, not a
Right. Just
one.
irony.
Yeah,
that's what it
just
was.
irony.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And also too, it what you're saying earlier, Eric, like it alleviates a lot of the issues of like, for only a 35-minute finale, you've got to be able to find a way to end this thing and do it in a way that feels very true to the story and feel true to these characters and true to the ultimate, sort of devastation that I think that like both this and Succession have. They have these really tragic Shakespearean sort of arcs that both of these, it's really wonderful that both of these shows ended at the same time. But I mean, personally, to me, like, I knew Barry shouldn't or couldn't get out of this. We have seen allusions to his death all of season 3. We saw allusions of it in what we thought to be his death in season 4, but also really also too a lot of allusions to the fact that of a life without him, or or his mortality and what it looks like, and the idea of it not going out on his own terms, going out not by a gunfire, but also when his son is safe with Sally. Hank's not chasing him. Fuchs is not chasing him. No one's chasing him anymore. So really, the when you think that your guard is down and the threat only left is Gene Cousineau, you're not really, your guard is completely down, and that's when it goes awry for him. And I think it's kind of great. And then it then makes the ending of the episode fantastic to me, because it's again, we all know the true story. We all know how this really all happens. The audience knows that. But in reality, it's very much a man that shot Liberty Valance sort of thing, where this new history, because of this movie, has been reformed to now. I mean, the fact that Barry is buried with full honors in Arlington National Cemetery and Gene is in prison is the ultimate. Just, I mean, I was laughing, but my mouth was on the floor at the same time, because it's exactly what happens with these sort of Hollywood based on a true story things that get amalgamated, or a story gets heard and it gets changed, or and then the truth becomes murkier than what it actually really was, and then we get settled with not all the facts. And I mean, like the article about his son who Gene shoots in, I think, the 3rd episode or 4th episode, and he's saying, I didn't know my house was bought by drug money, and all these different things that are true, but that's not the full truth. And I find that, I find that really interesting. I mean, like a movie like Burn After Reading was clearly in my brain as I was watching this finale of, by the end of, well, what did we learn here? And having that sort of last 5 minutes of that movie really crystallize and become really hilarious. But then just like the rest of the show, it's a lot of dark stuff that leads up into that comedy by the end. I gotta say this as last point. I don't know if anybody has any other points they want to mention, but for me, I know we've all kind of danced around it, but I'm just gonna say it. Bill Hader continuously has delivered some of the best direction of television by any program that's currently on in this Emmy race. I still don't understand how he didn't win the Emmy last year for Best Director. He's probably not going to win it again this year because of the fact that, they just haven't gone that way for him. And I don't understand it. I mean, his writing's great and his performances are incredible here, but like his direction is something that, like Tyler was mentioned, like he's someone that's going to go and do other projects and just continue to knock it out of the park because he understands visual language, I think, better than a lot of other showrunners or co-showrunners out there. And to be able to balance all of that acting and the directing and writing all of this, and it's such a deep, dark mood piece, and to keep it all glued together. This is not I don't think an easy, sort of situational comedy or anything. This is a very dark character study. So I'm just going to say all for the front, for any Emmy stuff, for the love of God, give him a damn Emmy for directing, not for anything else. Like, it's also just kind of the perfect thing to give this series because it feels like such a piece of direction, just like Succession does. Watching both of them, it was like, man, these shows really understand blocking and framing and editing and understanding not just what's on the page, but how to show the audience as well. So I don't know if anybody else has any final comments on Barry before we talk about the comedy series. No? Okay.
I'm just going to say that
felt pretty final there, Ryan.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
There wasn't much room for anybody else there. You just kind of, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say.
Well, you can all say what you want to say.
I'm going to say.
There you go.
I'm going to say that I have this theory that I'm going to live with forever, that Sally wrote The Mask Collector.
That would be great.
Now this is gonna bleed into a theory about Succession that will.
Is it AI generated or is it AI generated? You'll never know.
Oh no,
it's Willa related. So
also Jim Cummings. I mean,
what's that?
Jim Cummings' performance, by the way, too. Just coming in here, I laughed my ass off when I saw him playing.
Yeah, no, that was a fucking great sight gag, and yeah.
So good. Comedy series. I mean, obviously I don't think Barry's winning comedy series because there's a couple of other shows that are stronger candidates. There's another show that maybe is leaving. I don't, in Ted Lasso, though I think its third season has been exactly. Tyler's eyes roll say a lot about that third season.
It's long.
Yeah, it's too long. I think that right now the front runner for comedy series is Abbott Elementary, and
it should be the other two.
Yeah, it should be the other two. That is the best comedy television right now. Yeah, Abbott was sort of supposed to kind of be that in its first season too, and then it didn't happen because it was a default to Ted Lasso. I think it will default again. We're not even at the nomination stage yet, but I think that it feels like that it most likely will. And it doesn't have the competition from Hacks like it was the first 2 years, which was kind of like this back and forth. But yeah, I think Barry deserves a lot, but it is we're in such a weird place in television and Emmy categories, and they're trying to keep up. They're constantly, I will give them more props than most awards bodies in that their academy is trying to constantly change, and they do change their rules and adapt their rules year to year to kind of keep up with how different television is and how the vagaries of comedy and drama and time limits are. But I I don't know, outside of the main top contenders, I don't know what we're really going to see as major breakthroughs, because the more television we have, the fewer choices there ultimately ends up being with nominations. It's not the other way around. Voters are less inclined to go outside when they have 200 things to potentially watch. They're going to watch 10.
Yeah.
It's why we get, the White Lotus with 75 nominations.
Well, that's true. That's true. But obviously I think it'll be better next year because of the fact that, potentially not having Ted Lasso and Barry and overall
or any television shows.
I mean, or any television shows for that. Well, I mean, some are in the can, some are not. I mean, it all depends on the writer's strike at this point.
It's going to be strange, and it will be full of like weird summer shows from Apple TV Plus that nobody knows about, and then mid-season replacements that just make the cutoff post-strike. It's going to be very strange next year.
It's also going to be really strange once we get to the Emmys when the strike is still going on, because I do believe it'll still be going on at that point.
That would be extremely bad if the strike is that long. That'll cover,
it's all summer long, essentially. It'd be mid-September by that point. Yeah, it wouldn't be good.
Yeah, but if SAG goes on strike too, nobody's going to film festivals. Nobody's doing anything. It will be bleak.
It will be very bleak. Which I mean, that will hurt. But it is what it is. In order to get everybody paid the exact.
There it is again. It is what it is.
It's exactly what it is.
That's like it's fine for me.
It is what it is. In order for everybody to get paid exactly what they deserve, then yes. I mean, if we don't have people go to festivals, or if we don't have award shows, which I mean obviously hurts us, but at the same token though, we wouldn't have any of that if we didn't have writers or actors, and it's a different landscape than it was in 2008, 2007, 2008, when we had the last writer's strike, and even but with the IATSE deal in 2021, like that was completely different than this, and that was quicker than we thought it would be. Right now, there's not even a budge at this point. We haven't even heard of anything yet. So
no, I think it's going to require all the major guilds to unite.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing that's going to rock these massive conglomerates, because these aren't just networks anymore. These are massive corporations that have studios, internet, television, every possible facet. So
theme parks.
Everything. It's everything, and they're so large.
They're all Waystar,
Royco.
When you said theme parks, that's all I could think of.
Exactly. Cruise lines, all of the things.
There you go.
Those become almost unshakable because they are just so massive, and the only thing that's really going to be able to do that is a unification of every possible guild.
Yeah, I feel like we brought it a little bit down because we were just talking about Emmys, probably Barry's fault in a lot of ways. But I mean, obviously, it feels like Abbott Elementary, Ted Lasso. Those are the top two contenders.
The Bear.
Yeah, I'm curious about The Bear. And if Jeremy Allen White can beat Jason Sudeikis, I would be one happy girl.
Oh, I'd be very
I think
happy.
he has a very good shot. I think
he can.
Yeah. And I think obviously Quinta, winning actress, that will be high on my priority list. I thought she was fantastic this year. The series itself. Obviously the bloodbath that is supporting actress. If it'll end up being repeats, if Brett Goldstein wins a third, or if they go back to Henry Winkler, or if it's somebody new in the category, we'll see about that. Supporting actresses, there's so many ways that could go, honestly. But yeah, is there, I mean, besides the other two, is there another series that you guys are thinking that could potentially, rack up nominations and kind of surprise Emmy morning? Does anybody have anything?
I would be surprised if the other two got some nominations, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, I would too, to be very honest.
Those are your long, I feel like that is the long shot that a lot of people want to see happen. Like it's like
it does, even though we have categories with multiple nominations now. There's going to be 8 shows in the series categories. The supporting categories will have like probably 7 or 8, and they are matched by gender. So if you have 8 in one, you're going to have 8 in the other. So it always that all depends on number of submissions, and it's easy to do in supporting.
But not having shows like Hacks or some other shows that
Hacks is going to they really carved out massive amounts of nominations in the first 2 seasons, so that is a big open door.
Yeah, for a lot of stuff
in that category for sure.
It'll be interesting to see how something like, does that open up the door for more for a show like What We Do in the Shadows that has done well in just series and in writing and stuff, or does it finally get into there for Cass? What will be the wild card show that gets in there? Does anything from outside of Abbott from the networks or from the major networks get in? I doubt it. We'll see. I mean, there's Erik's favorite show, the Sex and the City spinoff, that'll get up a ton of Emmy nominations. It's for its second season. They'll have a resurrection there, right? No, Erik?
That doesn't even come out till June, so that's not even eligible until next year. But
the fact that
it probably will now. Can't wait for that Che Diaz nomination.
Oh my God.
Can't wait.
Well, looking forward to all that. Looking forward to obviously more of the Emmy coverage from Erik and Tyler for those predictions, more interviews and stuff coming up. But we're here to talk about this other show that has kind of dominated everyone's social media pages the last 24 hours or less than 24 hours, more or 24 hours or so, close to it. And that's Succession, the series finale of this insanely wonderful drama that has been going on the last 4 or 5 years. I know Erik's thoughts on it because we did a podcast earlier this morning with the great Christine Euling-Biro for Pop Culture Confidential, and so we got to talk extensively about it. So I'll save Erik's and my thoughts after Tyler and Sophia. So Sophia, I'll kick it off to you. I mean, we were kind of texting back and forth all season long about this, and this is your Sunday night show, not your Monday show. So I'm curious what you thought of this finale, because we're obviously leading up to it. I mean, this is all about finding out who will be on top, who will win, or does that even matter, honestly, when you really think about it, by the end of this finale?
I don't think anyone wins or won in this show, really. That's just my overall opinion. And I never really thought anyone could win, because the show itself, it's about so much greed, family, love, hatred, violence. Like, so many things are wrapped up in the show, and it's why it's so brilliant. It is Shakespearean. That's what I like about it. It is King Lear. What I suspected, what many people suspected all along, really came true and came to fruition last night with this finale. And I was worried, I think, because you always do when one of your favorite shows ends. Like, will it stick the landing with the finale? And I think time will tell, but for where I am right now on this finale, I do think it will be one of the great TV finales of all time. It was stunning. It was a masterstroke. Each character got their time, and it was realistic. I think every single character acted in the way that was right for them and how they were written throughout the series. And it drained me fully. So Succession is actually my Sunday and Monday show, because I usually watch it twice. I'll watch it a second time on Monday. So I watched it again today. And I think just the experience of this finale, I have not had a feeling like this from a piece of media since I watched Chinatown for the first time, where when it ended, I just felt so down and drained by what had happened. And yes, I am a Kendall girl through and through, and I knew that, with Kendall, the theme is always, what goes up must come down. And I sadly had some hope there, but it wasn't right. And I do love the ending, though. I think it really worked, and especially those final 15 minutes. Just incredible television. So I'm excited to dig into it. It was a perfect ending to one of my favorite shows.
Tyler, I'm really curious because I don't think I've really talked to you that much about it the last day and really seen your reactions online. So I'm really curious. What did you think of the finale?
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, good.
I think
All
Kendall
right.
is baby girl.
I want to give him a hug.
I think Sophia could fix him.
Oh my God, don't tell me
I-
that. Stop. I can't.
You better
I can't
fix
do
him
this
before he jumps.
anymore.
You know what I mean?
You know that the drug bender he went on, like,
oh my God. He got
I
some
am
good
personally
shit that night.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
I'm personally a Roman girl, and so there are a lot of big things happened for me in the finale. One of the biggest was watching the violence that Kendall used to protect Roman from for their father. He then pushed himself onto Roman.
Mhm.
I thought that was so interesting to see because, as Sophia said, with Kendall, we've all known this whole time what was coming. For me, the moment he sat down in the chair in that episode and it went to Shiv, I was like, oh no, it's over. He's not getting it. And we even Mark Mylod, the director, and Jesse Armstrong giving us that moment of comfort. I knew, like, this is not Succession. We don't live in that comfort zone. He's giving us this because they're about to snatch us out of it. They're about to push us. And what you said, I mean, those last 15 minutes was truly astounding. I hate using the word riveted, but I will for this. I could not look away. Just being inundated with feelings because I knew it was coming, and then watching the entire last bit. I really was hoping the entire show would end after they had a meal fit for a king. I thought that would have been just great. Everyone got along. I would have loved that.
And you never
Roman
know who
licking the
wins.
cheese.
No
Roman licking the cheese was perfect.
I will say, if I think that anyone won, I think it was
speak.
Roman. Speaking of that, now that we've gotten there, if anyone won that last bit, seeing him smile, I smiled. That's my man, y'all. Like, he's happy. Even for a brief moment, he's gotten out. He's away from them. He's away from the entirety of the world. And another thing that really hurt me, but also uplifted me, was watching that home video. And when it was focused on Jerry, oh my gosh, Kieran's face looking at her and sitting down, the way he took it in like a child. Just so masterclass storytelling. And it was an amazing series, but a truly incredible finale. 90 minutes. I could have watched another 90 minutes just with these characters. I love them so much.
Erik, we've talked a lot about this, you and I, already today.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the beauty of this show is the fact that the more and more you step away from it, the more and more you pick up on. So within that time period, that we haven't talked or talked a lot about it since our show earlier today, have your thoughts changed a little bit?
No, definitely not. I'm kind of on the other side of Sophia in the sense that I didn't leave the series down. I left on such a high of being able to witness it. I guess I don't want to sound hyperbolic like it was a religious experience. I just mean that it just fits in so beautifully with so many really HBO shows
Yes, it
that
does.
are curated by incredible showrunners and people with so much vision and power in their storytelling. And yes, I'm not team Roman exactly, but I absolutely love Kieran Culkin and what he did with Roman. Because, and I say that I'm not
You guys.
team anybody because everybody is just absolute fucking monsters. These are bad people. Like I can feel glad that Roman had that little bit of smile and hopefully relief and maybe kind of being one of the only people that can dig himself out and be a new person after this. But he still supported a fucking Nazi president. He's a horrible, horrible person. They're all horrible people.
Yeah.
I don't want to get away from like that too much just in the face of how horny him licking that cheese was, because I would have risked it all for that moment. I would be like, you know what? See ya, husband. I'm gone. Let's go, Roman.
Well, they specifically said he was going down on the cheese. I hope you caught that.
I did.
I mean, yes, sure. Yes.
I was there, tuned in.
I also remember him and his trainer. And so there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of things going on there. But no, I mean,
where was he, by the way, in this finale? Good Lord.
I was kind of see, I was theorizing too that
he'd be the real winner.
The trainer from White Lotus is the same trainer because the worlds exist in the same universe. And he was just kind of like fucking all the Richies around New York City.
Fair.
That's just my thought. But no, I loved it. I might love it even more because I also have so much respect for it. It was not fan service. It was service purely to the characters. And that, again, that's how you do a good show. Period. And it was.
Honestly, the more I thought about it today, I think it rings up there with Mad Men and The Leftovers as my favorite finales of the last 15 years or so. I think that those endings are perfect because they say so much about the characters and are really putting the characters forward, and they have so much say, and they wrap everything up on an ending I didn't see really coming, in doing it in such a way that is very much like, okay, this is very Jesse Armstrong. This is very much exactly what we all kind of expected, because Erik was telling me this, Sophia and I were talking about this left and right. I knew my number one boy was not going to win this thing. There's just too much hope and all that. Like, I mean, he should have, but because he's evidently the eldest and all that. But that's beside the point. The point is the show is that, like, this is a tragedy. This always has been a tragedy. His story alone is a tragedy. The fact that, like, every time he gets off the mat, he gets immediately punched through the floor. And that's what makes Jeremy Strong's performance so wonderful and captivating. And it's been so great, at least, because I mean, there was a stupid article about like the season was a mess and then the finale saved it and whatever. That was bullshit, because I think this season was saved by the fact that Logan died, and then we got to spend more time with these characters and have them do not necessarily the same thing that they had been doing the last 3 years, and taking risks and being able to explore their emotions more, and how the world would be without Logan Roy, and how this truly would end with a quote unquote succession. And
I think we needed to see what these Nepo babies would do without their Nepo.
Without daddy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We needed to see what that world looked like. And it was a fucking hot mess because they were all absolute ADHD crazies that could barely like speak.
Again, unserious people.
Yeah. I think that Armstrong completely nailed it. I'm with Tyler. I hate the word riveting, but I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Shout out to my wife Megan. She was literally trying to ask me a question. I said, "I'm sorry, this series finale is going on right now. Please hold." Especially it was 20 minutes left to go. Like I was like, "No, I'm not answering any questions right now." And everything, because it was you couldn't miss a moment, a word of dialogue, a cut, a frame. I mean, everything about this episode was extraordinary because it keeps up the same momentum as if it's like in the first season. And there's so many callbacks to the first season. There's so many callbacks to every single word of dialogue that was written in this series is purposeful to the actions of what happens at the end. I mean, obviously, Tom sort of quote unquote rags to riches sort of story, and the fact that he's been, tried to be used as a pulpit for the cruises and the testimony and not taken seriously. And we saw Carl earlier in the season basically beat the shit out of him in the pantry, essentially,
Team
with
Carl.
the verbal abuse and then obviously everything going on with him and Shid's marriage, and for him to end up on top and be okay with being this pain sponge for Sarsgaard at the end it's total Tom, because it's exactly what happens at the end of season 3, where he's willing to screw over all 3 of those Nepo babies in order to be on top. And they still underestimate him the entire time. I think that I told Sophia this. I was so confident in this. I knew it would happen. I knew it would be Shiv would be the one to screw this all up for one of them to take over or succeed. It just felt like that because of the fact that either it was through the Matsson deal or it was through them coming back together. And I told Erik this, but she has been underestimated by her brothers this entire time. And you can just tell that they came up with every excuse in the book to say, no, you're not going to be the CEO. And finally, when it came down to her, she was the last vote. She said, what's her reasoning? I just don't think you'll do a good job with it. She didn't even need to explain it, because it's the same sort of bullshit explanations that she's been given her entire life as to why she couldn't be taken seriously.
When she gets up from that table, I was like, this is like the best survivor tribal councils, when everyone starts scattering during them and like whispering.
It was her Sue Hawk moment, though.
What about when she said,
yes, it was.
What about when she said, you can't do it, you killed somebody?
Yeah. Bringing back the vulnerability of when he said that in season 3.
Like, I loved it though.
I mean, it was like,
I thought she was going to go run out to the boardroom and be like, did you know that he killed a guy?
Yeah.
I was foaming at the mouth. You guys, and I don't know about you guys, but I was screaming, crying, throwing up, backflipping, doing poppers, and taking my shirt off when Stewie popped up. That is the most important character on Succession. When we found out that he kisses guys on Molly, there's nothing more important that we've learned in 39 episodes, y'all. There's nothing more important.
But again,
now we can
totally in character.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And he was talking to his baby girl boyfriend, and I love that.
Yeah.
Also, too, that whole scene there is another. You're talking about like when Kendall sits in the chair. When Stewie walks in there, the immaturity of Kendall at that moment of just being like, throwing around his dude bro language in there and like slurping it up already. You could tell right then in that moment, Shiv's like, oh, this is going to be the most insufferable shit on the planet Earth if this guy takes over. I can't do it. I can't stomach it. And sorry, Sophia.
Oh no, you're good. I think there's an interesting parallel that happens in the episode that I really picked up on my second watch, was that, you have this absolutely disgusting conversation between Tom and Matsson, where he basically says, like, I want to fuck your wife. And I think she would do the same. Basically, I hope you're okay with that. And that's why she can't be CEO. That's why I'm not picking her. That's why I'm picking you, everything like that. And the way that Tom reacts to it, calmly, with no principles, he's an absolute scumbag and a worm. but he shows that he can be CEO because he will be that puppet. What does Mattson say to him? He says, I'm not looking for a partner. I'm looking for a front man.
Mhm.
So he knows like who he's looking for, and that is the type of CEO that they want. So when Shiv puts Kendall to the test, he absolutely fails. She sees her dad in that moment. She sees someone who cannot do the job. She's right. He would be terrible at it. I don't think he could do it either. I mean, I love him, much to my dismay, but he couldn't, and she's right. He flips out. He gets violent. He decides the second she hits him with that ultimate information that she's been banking and holding in, and she releases it at the right moment about the kill.
She had that Uno card ready to go.
She was ready. And when she says that and he lies to them and says, oh, I just said that to make us closer. He loses right there too. It's wasn't pathetic.
That wasn't for me the moment though he lost it and it was all lost. The moment is when Roman
you thought that Shiv had the Uno card?
Yeah. No.
There are many.
Kids. Roman dropped the deck. I mean, he dropped the deck with like, oh, your kids, they're not even blood related to you. She's got a real Roy in her. And he's like,
how?
And I was like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dad didn't even think those were his grandkids, essentially. And at that point, we've seen throughout this entire series how Kendall has acted when anyone speaks about his children, or particularly anybody touches his kids or speaks about him. Shoot, we saw when Rava tried to take his daughter out of the city during the whole election, how he acted then and how angry and almost violent he was there at that moment. So yeah, I mean, when that happened and he's like trying to almost peel off Roman's face with the stitches, I was like, yep, this is done. They're fucked. This whole thing is done. And
but to Sophia's point, that's why Tom rose to the test, because the rest of them are absolute emotional shipwrecks.
Yes.
And he's not. He is stoic as fuck.
And I loved what he said too. I can't stand Tom. Like I really do hate him. Like there are things about him that it's such an interesting thing that he was the one who rose in the ranks, because he actually got a job in the company. Like he actually did the things you're supposed to do if you ideally want a position like CEO or want to rise in the ranks. And, he's from Minnesota. Like he's not wealthy by any means when the show, in his childhood, at least. And I liked when he mentioned that he stays up all night worrying, that's like one of his key like qualities, I suppose. So it's just, I don't know, the others, they worry about things, but they're so volatile and impulsive, and he feels a little bit more deliberate because all he cares about is money. Yeah. And he mentions that several times throughout the show. In the earlier seasons too, he says things like, money's always on my mind. I'm always thinking about money. And they are too, but they're also thinking about just their own emotions and their own place in it.
Also too, like the fact that they're all emotional. They're going to the funeral. They're crying and can't even get through a speech. Meanwhile, where's Tom? He's fighting all the fires. He's showing up late. It's the first time he breaks down in like 7 days. And where was he? He's literally by the cold body while he's talking to these three as they're like essentially shattered. Their life is destroyed. Meanwhile, Tom's sitting there helping write the draft. He's a stone cold son of a bitch. He really is.
He's an example of the person that was in the room and everybody else was kind of on the outside.
Yeah, it's the reason why when Logan taps his shoulder at the end of season 3, it's very much like, you kind of do have that killer in you because you're willing to fuck over my own daughter to keep your neck in here. That's admirable. He's very close to Logan by the end.
And the only time that Tom loses his shit is with Greg, but in the privacy of a bathroom that nobody heard or saw. So he knows
and he slapped the shit
how to manage himself.
Yeah, and he still doesn't give anything really away to Greg. Like, he doesn't give anything crucial away. He gets out what he needs from him and he reacts, but he doesn't blow up in the way that one of the Roy children would.
No,
That fight was also very.
It was.
Are you gonna kiss? What's happening now?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
But also too, putting that sticker on him. I mean,
reminding me of Ash Wednesday.
Okay. Affixing that sticker to something you covet, but also putting a literal target on Greg's head.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we talked about with Christina. Greg is the new Tom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Just replaced him, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, because Greg's now going to even suffer at such a higher extent, even more. It's
you thought those like little Senate hearings where he fucked that up were bad? Nah.
Yeah, no.
Greg is fucked.
Yeah,
and taking a pay cut. And can we talk a little bit too about we don't. These are obviously multi-billion billionaires, and we get very little in the realm of real numbers. We got the numbers with Pierce, which was like 10 billion where they were going to go, and obviously the Gojo deals 197. Those were real numbers, but even like using just 197 feels sort of empty. Talking about Greg's salary very specifically was just like one of those moments that broke through the cracks of a show where you're talking about people with an obscene amount of wealth that as a viewer you're just kind of it's so out of the realm of reality that it's easy to kind of not think about it really in terms of real numbers, other than hey, you have a helicopter and you have this fucking car. But breaking it down and using $200,000 as even its own form of like low currency, and then you're going to be down to like $40,000. It was just I don't know. I mean, it was great.
Yeah,
it was great. But then also too, I mean, I think all the stuff that happens in the Caribbean, I think all of that is absolutely fantastic. Layering the, it all what is to come, essentially, them, Shiv and Kendall swarming out there trying to get Roman to come on to their side. Shiv essentially finding out about getting screwed over by Matsson, but then also too those three having one last moment together of togetherness before it all crumbles. I'll have like the first season where they're in the boat and they're drunk and they're kids. They're essentially back to their childhood. And I found a lot of those moments to be really great. I mean, obviously Roman's a absolute mess, but then there's, Eric and I talked about this earlier this morning. I thought that the scene in which they're trying to break down who of the three would work again, and Roman's extreme pettiness in this moment of being like, well, Dad told me before he died, and then like, Shiv's like, he's told me, and then like Kendall being like, he told me when I was 7. I like this
again,
like,
it's like a Survivor alliance.
Yeah, and he's like, well, you don't have any pictures.
Story.
Yeah, no pictures, no proof. You know what I mean? And then he just kind of walks away from it all. And but even then, while Kendall goes in the water, they're sitting there like how they usually are, those two sabotaging
conversation.
That was amazing.
Having to basically be like, yeah, we could just fuck them, right? Like we could just fuck them over and everything. And gotta love Peter for being that guy that sees an opportunity, that billions of dollars being presented to children. And I've got a great deal for you guys in this guy that comes out of like the weeds, essentially just kind of slurps on up there and be like, yeah, we've got numbers here and everything. And they're like, fuck you, we're not here for any of this shit. Like it's
really really poor timing by Peter.
Yeah, and by Mom, you know what I mean too. But I think that I said this to Eric, and I think a lot of people said this online, but I mean, essentially Shiv by her decisions that she makes about her brothers, and the ultimate decision to be by Tom's side, essentially. I don't think that she's like playing chess over everybody here, or it's this one thing or whatnot. I think it's completely tragic for her. I think she ends up being in the position that she didn't ever want to be in, which is exactly what her mom is. She's the
Yeah.
She's her mom. She's gonna have a kid. I don't, Eric and I had talked about like that kid essentially is gonna grow up in a really fucked up house. And can't wait to see
I said what I think should happen with that. So.
Yes, we don't need to re-say that all over again.
I mean, if you look at how their dog Mondale is neglected, I'm really worried for the child.
Yeah, is Mondale even alive? Has anybody fed him in the last 7 days? Holy shit!
I'm worried about wherever
Mondale
is.
7 days. It's been months.
It's
that
been months, girl.
Is dead.
I mean, like seriously.
We should in a minute get to, speaking of Mondale, talk about the video that Connor plays.
Yes.
At the whole ridiculous put your sticker on dad stuff
Holy
thing.
Shit.
But I don't want to leave the Caribbean yet because it is such an incredible sequence, and them in the kitchen completely freed of everything that is happening is a fantastic moment. But and it does sort of trick you and lull you into maybe they can find some unity. I totally get it. I am also the eldest boy. I'm the eldest son. And have 2 younger brothers that I am extremely estranged with. But we have had moments like that where all of that was kind of put aside, as even if it was false, just to have some a moment like that. And I love that as a viewer we were given that, even though we knew that it was going to be short-lived, but it gave everybody really like some of their best moments of the whole season, because we don't get to see a lot of joy and just kind of unbridled laughing and fun. I can't. When Roman throws the bread pieces, the knobbies at Shiv, and she just like catches like all 3 of them with one hand, and the look on her face, I don't know. That's like in my brain.
The smile
it just
that she has. It's it's like
we never saw anything like that in 4 seasons than that moment.
And then obviously her spitting into the concoction.
Oh, that was
which is incredible, but also
Shiv loves to spit. Between that and spitting in the book, which also just super erotic and just kind of, I don't know.
It also is continuity with her pettiness about the fact that she's still not very happy about even this moment as well, and and anointing quote unquote a king and everything. But yes, then it leads to back at Logan's place, and Connor and Willis, essentially the most stupidest thing. I laughed so hard at the sticker system and Roman making fun of the damn stickers and everything, and which I mean, a total Connor thing of just making something super overcomplicated and silly. But then I mean that video of this dinner that happened, I guess, a couple months before his passing, and it just really unlayers a lot about Logan, and you get to see another side that we don't get to normally see, it especially these 3 kids don't get to see, and what it means about his relationships with everybody in those frames too. It's and then also to juxtapose that back, like what Tyler was saying, to then their reactions. It's one last sort of gut punch and remembrance of their father, which I thought was just really, really well executed by Jesse Armstrong there in this moment too, to weave this one last look of Logan into their lives before their lives are going to be completely changed forever, and there's no possible going back or maybe reconciliation that will happen by these decisions. I don't know, Sophia, what did you think?
No, I loved that scene, and I think that one of the things that I did really like about it was that throughout the series, these kids, these adult Roy children, they think that like their relationship with their father is the most important thing, and it's it's either Roman and Logan or Shiv and Logan or Kendall and Logan, but really in that moment, you realize like the importance of Carl and Jerry and the special, unique relationships that they had with Logan and why they were in his orbit for so long and why they are still there. Despite everything that has happened throughout these seasons, everything that they've put up with from these kids and from, all of, the courts and all of the scandal that's happened, even after his death, they're still there. And that shows you why. And like in the end too, when Carl and Frank look at each other and they're like, golden parachute, one more round, like, are we still gonna be here? And it makes you realize, I think, why they're all still there and willing to stick around.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. They are old school business.
Yeah.
These are united boomers together.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at this generation and the generations beneath and just like, what in the fuck are these people doing?
Well, I mean, that's why Tom brings back Jerry. By the end, you can see that he's like, who's
like maybe like the closest to a winner because she gets to stay
always,
and
I love Jerry
payout.
Yeah,
and she doesn't have to get
a double payout,
and she doesn't have to get any more dick pics.
I do love that Tom keeps Jerry and Carolina. I did enjoy that.
And Hugo
got rid of Hugo.
Yeah. Oh my god, Hugo. He is a snaky worm that you kind of want to have around to do like the gutter stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's just like, no, I've got a Greg. I don't need a Hugo.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back to when they go to see Mattson and his team and he's got all the food on his plate, right? Is that Hugo and everything? Yeah. I think back to that shit and it's just like, yeah, dude, you're just like way out of your depth here. You don't belong here anymore, dumbass. But no, Tyler, you were gonna say something real quick about.
I was just gonna say regarding Jerry, I don't know if anyone has seen, but J. Smith Cameron tweeted a picture of Roman today and said, "My ex wants me back." And I just thought if you haven't seen that, you should totally look at it because she is amazing and Jerry's amazing. So anyone who hasn't seen that, I'd like to bring it to your attention.
I mean,
if there was a fault of the finale, it was obviously that Jerry did not have
a moment.
Really anything at all.
Yeah.
And that was kind of unfortunate because J. Smith Cameron is so phenomenal.
Yeah. And also too, I mean, the fact that she did all that and then she was one of the reasons why Roman essentially breaks down again, because when he sees her, that's his unraveling from all of his confidence that he had walking into the room. And then, I mean, when the deal is done, I said this earlier to Eric, and I mean, I do think he is kicking and screaming to go sign those papers and he'd be even close near Mattson, let alone wanting to continue any of this. He wants to get literally the fuck out of there. And that scene in that conference room is so just it is the last line of defeat for them, and he just doesn't want to face it because he truly hates Mattson in that scene. And then of course the photo. I thought that the great line of even Judas is here. Like, and Greg's and it pans over to Greg. It's so good. But I mean, we've talked about sort of the final shots, which is, obviously, Roman gets to go back to being essentially, he's got a lot of money and he goes to be the worm that he is and how he always has been, in my opinion. I mean, he'll probably start some alt-right channel or something for potentially his ex president to be, because there's that throwaway line of Shiv talking about Wisconsin and how all that could crumble. And that doesn't mean that Mencken is president anymore, and that could smell blood in the water for Tom and ATN and Shiv and everybody there. Obviously Shiv making those decisions there. I mean, does anybody want to talk about them essentially not wanting to hold hands there?
The handhold that wasn't.
I mean, incredible, right?
Yeah, it was. I saw it compared to The Graduate, which I think is a good comparison. I like that. It is. Yeah. I'm so sorry to the people on the internet who think that this is a loving relationship or that is a hand holding moment. That is a problem in the backseat of a car right there. Like
that is an awkward silence.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, that like when I look at Shiv's choice, as sad as I was in the moment and as frustrated as I was in the moment, I think she made the right call. I think that ultimately, like, she made the right decision in not giving it to Kendall, because ultimately her brothers have screwed her over time and time again. They cut her out. There was no place for her. And ultimately, for someone who, her brothers and everyone around her, they've all said she can't make a decision, she's flighty, etc. She made the choice, and it was, I think, the choice that, even though it was emotional and impulsive and puts her in a similar situation to her mother, ultimately I do think it was the right call for her future and the future of, her child, and is the only thing that could really make her marriage work. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to be filled with all kinds of horror and not a lot of love, but I think it was the right call for her. And
it's looking like a forward output rather than just like an immediate thing as well.
Yeah. And again, like, it's King Lear. It's the name is important too. Shiv, she's a knife. She was the one who killed her brother, really, in the end. And she was, and her husband was the one who got the power. But what is Shiv good at ultimately? What is one of the only things that she can really be successful in? It's manipulating men and power. She's always been good at that. So I'm curious.
There's literally the political
Yeah.
cartoon of her as the puppet master of Matt, and now she's going to be with Tom. So this was really her only choice, because she's had to face misogyny in this show from her father, from her brothers, from Mattson in that conversation with Tom. So there was no way that any choice that she was going to make wasn't going to be a factor. This is the only one that allowed her to have any type of, not power, but like real choice.
Have a life.
Yeah.
It's the only one.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think it's frustrating, but
she will have agency in this choice. It's not
and she will,
scenario, but it's the only one that is going to give her any agency at all.
And she will probably get picked on still a little bit about the fact, about this decision or whatever behind the scenes from whoever. But ultimately, Tom is a much more easily manipulated tool, and is the reason why essentially she puts him in this position by talking to Mattson about this, so she can easily.
She's a kingmaker.
Yeah, and so in a lot of ways, she's going to be making those decisions, and she's setting it up for a world where she's got this deal, but she's going to have whatever comes with it. And with her not being CEO, if there is any collateral damage or anything that happens from Mencken or the buyout or the stuff that happens with the users not being there or whatever happens in the fallout, she doesn't have to be a part of any of it because she's not CEO. She's not the face of it. She's not going to take the brunt of it. So
I think she still might, because the perception is of the puppet master, just like the cartoon.
Perception of it is that, but she's not the name that will fall for it. You know what I mean? And also her brothers are more and Tom are more responsible for the outcome in Wisconsin than she ever was. She's totally against that. So it clears her from there. It clear, Mattson stuff, that's clearly all their problem. So,
but I think we know, and we talked about this with Christina, that whatever happens post buyout, it's going to be an absolute disaster.
Oh, it's going to be a shit show.
He's going to destroy the company. It'll be worse than Elon Musk, and he's going to take this corporation that has existed for however many decades it is,
cut it to the bone,
across every possible avenue of media, entertainment, all of the things, and absolutely destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about it too, it's like, even though in earlier seasons, Shiv had all of the power over Tom, he seemed just so weak in her presence and would fold to anything that she said or did. And in recent seasons, like the end of 3 and into 4, we've seen that, he can hurt her too. He has a power over her too, in a way with his words that gets at her too, in a way that she won't forget. But I think the ultimate thing is that it's what Matsson said. And that is his boss now. So that's another power that she effectively has over Tom with that, and over Matsson, without really even knowing it.
Yeah. And then
it still kind of makes him a cuck too, between
yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of, I mean, it's his best case scenario as well.
Yep.
But not enviable.
No, it's not like he's jumping for joy, essentially. It's again another relief life raft moving. It almost even feels lateral. It doesn't feel like moving up in a lot of ways. But then of course the final shot of the series is just Kendall's
number one boy.
Yeah, number one boy contemplating whether that ocean looks really good or not. And essentially leaving without a purpose. And God knows what is going to happen to him. I mean, obviously, we talked about this with Christina, which, by the way, we keep alluding to this episode. Please go listen to Pop Culture Confidential in this episode that we talked about, but continue to listen to us as well. It's cross promotion. But yeah, I mean, the more I've just thought about it today, I'm like, I know some people are like, oh, there was an interview where he said like that Strong was, he shot a scene where he jumped over or whatnot. I think it's perfect the way it is to leave it just like that, because I mean, Kendall's already been through enough on him. Just kill him at the end, that would be too much. But I mean, yes, it's just a full circle moment again. He's there with no votes at the board meeting, essentially, gonna go down a potential another spiral. And I don't know what it will do if he ends up buying something with his money that he'll be able to start up and build that'll potentially be the opposite of what Gojo is at this moment, if he'll be part of the downfall and of Gojo in order to then stupidly think that he can get it back as like some sort of reward, whatever the case may be. Again, I start thinking about it more and more, and I'm like, yeah, he's at the lowest of points, and he's played all of his cards. But knowing Kendall Roy, that we've seen throughout 4 seasons, he's been at this spot many, many times before. And this guy has just weaseled his way back into finding himself closer and closer to the cheese. So it's just such a sad character. And that's what I love about it so much. It's like, dude, find another purpose, because good Lord, you're never going to get this. And at this point, it's not even worth it anymore. But he's been groomed like, through manipulation, just like Logan has been, and it's very well. I mean, like,
how's Logan been groomed?
Well, he's been not like groomed in terms of, I'm talking about like emotional manipulation. He was totally like that through his uncle, through the uncle and aunt. I mean, being blamed for the death of his sister makes him such a. It is then inflict all that pain and that anger that he has internally from being blamed for that. He's put all that hurt then on his children, especially on Kendall. I mean, shit. I think back to the first episode about like, you want to hit me? What are you gonna cry? Basically, like calling him a pussy to his face and saying he's not a killer, and all these different things.
You
like,
wait, Dad. I am a killer.
I am a killer. I can do it.
I think the theme is take childhood trauma seriously.
Trauma. So Tyler, what did you think of the last shot of this stuff?
I'm a big person of last shots. I think I've talked to Erik about this before. Because one of my favorite movies is 45 Years. So anything with the last scene or shot, it's this one in particular. I've been thinking about it kind of all day, because I had to work today, but while I was even helping people, talking to people, I don't know. I guess it imbued me with this sense of almost surrealism, to be honest with you, because although the show is grounded in such a hyperbolic reality of billionaires and all that, I guess the final shot was just I don't know. I don't have a specific thought on it because I just, to be honest, haven't focused down on that one yet. It reminds me of several shots we've seen across the show. I think that Mark Mylod is as good as it would have gotten for the show, to be honest, because he knew that show inside and out with everything he did on it. He did all 4 finales for us. So yeah, I guess unfortunately I don't have like a specific thought on it yet. It's almost like, to be honest, it's almost something I want to like write a full 5,000 word dissertation on once I can sit down and really think about it. So I guess I have multiple thoughts, but maybe when we get to actual our drama predictions and things, I'll have more of a specific thing about that.
Yeah, we'll be
But
doing.
I think we're looking at this shot, and it is framed very specifically with Colin in the background, just as if Kendall was essentially the new Logan anyway. And we talked a great deal about how Bill Hader and Barry had so much respect and knowledge of homage and entertainment that came before, and Succession is filled to the brim with those, whether it's Godfather or anything, so many. And they never completely just relied on those as their own currency. They just utilized them as very classically understood and told pieces of storytelling, but still did their own thing. So whether it's Shakespeare or whether it's Godfather or whatever it might be, it's still a completely unique brand. And I think that Mylod and Armstrong and the entire team that worked on this show understood that. And it's why this finale is great. It's why this last shot is great, because the respect they have for the work they're doing is actually, I think, greater than ours for watching it, which I think is the right way to do it. I don't remember now if we talked about this on this or on Christina's about fan service with whether it's a movie or a show. And once you dip into fan service, you really have lost the thread of why you're doing this project and why you are telling this story. And they never did that all the way until the very last shot. And it's great. It's perfect.
At least for speaking for Emmy's sake, real quick, because I think this would be pretty quick.
Wait, I want to talk about the final shot.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Sophia.
No,
sorry.
It's all right. I love the final shot. I think that it's perfect because it is like The Godfather in a lot of ways, specifically The Godfather Part 2, because what Kendall does to Roman specifically is very similar to what Michael does to Fredo in Part 2. A lot of the imagery, the kiss on the cheek, the violence with the love, like all intertwined. It's very physical. And this last shot, is very similar to the end of The Godfather Part 2 with Michael. Even the warm glows of that like amber light around him, it's very, very similar. And I think that the key difference is that, at the end of The Godfather Part 2, we see Michael looking off in a similar way, and he has lost everyone around him, but he still has his power. And Kendall has lost everyone, but he doesn't have his power anymore. So it's a bit of a difference there. But I love how we connect it to water. Kendall is always connected to water, and seeing that shot of
James
him.
Cameron.
Oh my God. He should go watch Avatar: The Way of Water. That'll
I think so.
free his mind.
That might be good. I mean, he's got some money now. You'll be, it's the saddest billionaire you'll ever see.
Just has money. Right. But I think too, like going back to one of the major themes of the episode that I think really comes through here is the title of the episode, with open eyes, right? Yeah. That is the theme of eyes coming throughout. We have so many great lines from Caroline about eyes and just really bizarre stuff happening. I think in the beginning of the episode there, when she says eyes revolt me and she calls them face eggs, and a big theme in The Godfather and a big theme in King Lear is blindness, like actual blindness, but also just being able to see and perceive what's in front of you. But I think here now, I am choosing not to, I'm choosing to lean into my own interpretation here with Kendall and think that he could, like, this, yes, will be the defining moment of his life that he may never recover from, but now he might be able to see things a bit more clearly, even though it's too late. And hopefully there's a better way forward for him, completely away from Waystar Royco.
Yeah, but also he's going to take some really great drugs that night. Yeah,
sure.
Or too many.
Or too many. Yeah,
and that's that.
Yeah, there you go. But he'll go out on his terms. For Emmys, I mean, are we looking at another sweeper here? Because I feel like we are.
I think people are really kind of leaning that way. Yeah, that it's going to be some kind of like Schitt's Creeky, The Crown kind of
thing,
sweep, which I think is possible for sure.
Yeah. I just don't see another show right now that could steal away momentum from this thing.
Yeah, no, I mean it would track that it could do all of the things. You know, like I said on the Christina pod, I just want everyone to get nominated, but Matthew McFadden be the only winner. That would be hilarious.
I think that is, I mean, obviously it's got a great chance in actor, actress, writing, directing. That's pretty much locked up, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that's
on the episodes.
Pretty safe, especially with The Crown being not as well received.
Yeah.
This season.
Its main competition is what? White Lotus, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, HBO will probably push this a little bit more, but
it's going to be a very interesting challenge.
Be very interesting. Yeah, because most of it comes from them, I think, in terms of the top contenders. But I do really think that it's going to go on top with drama series. I mean, it all had to just land really the finale, and if it could do that, and
I can't wait for it to get 5 DGA nominations again next year.
Yeah, that'll
be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to dominate a lot of the characters. It would be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, do they win all the category, all the acting categories? I don't know about.
They don't really have a shot in supporting actress, so no.
True, but I didn't. Tobias Menzies of all people ends up winning that one, and we were like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So you never know. I get it.
There was a small part of me that when Shiv was really, really getting mean in there to Kendall and making that choice, that made me wonder, like, will Emmy voters respond to that in the same way that they did to Laura Linney and Lena Headey, not being able to give these villainous women their Emmys because they can't handle these characters that deserve to win?
Yeah. But then also too, like, Zendaya's not part of the conversation.
Well, thankfully, yeah. I can't talk about that race.
Yeah. But well, I mean,
they did go for Anna Gunn. It took a while.
It did.
Yeah.
And obviously, the Skylar discourse.
I mean, it's almost like
horrific and horrible. Yeah. And there is certainly some comparable Shiv discourse in the way that people talk about complicated or just pure, evil female characters.
I just absurd. Don't know of a strong contender enough against Snook at this moment, because like Coolidge, I believe they have announced she's going to go supporting.
She's right? She's going to be the front runner.
Yeah. I mean, I want her to win so badly. I just have, you never know.
I mean, I worry about it all the time. I mean, like, I know that Eric and I talked about this briefly too, and it was like, I know everybody's putting all their chips in Karen Culkin for actor, and I think that they will default and go to Jeremy Strong, and who gives also incredible work, and people have just wanted to forget about that this season, because Karen Culkin has had an amazing season, but he had an amazing season last year too. And they went with Matthew McFadden, who again was fantastic too. So it'll be interesting to see who they go with lead. It won't be Brian Cox, and it will definitely not be Bob Odenkirk, because
No.
they're just never going to give that man an Emmy for anything.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, I feel like we will talk about this more and more over the next couple of weeks. We will have some
we're not
predictions
even
after
we're
those.
in the pre-nomination stage.
Yeah, we're not even talking about
wait till we
limited
get
today.
that.
And limited is its
I
own
can't wait to see
category.
what everybody submits once they get in, because everybody has fucking great tapes and a lot of them are the same.
Yeah, but sometimes tapes don't even matter, Zendaya. So you know what I mean? They end up just giving you Emmys. So you know what I mean? So but it will be interesting from this show specifically what they submit for each actor. So all right.
Well, I mean, they're going to be careful, and The Crown is careful too. It's like, we're just going to do, one writing so that we make sure that we get in. It's not going to be like Better Call Saul, which submits 13 episodes. Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah. So.
I mean, they have pretty good luck in the writing, but still, it's super risky. Yeah. But I can absolutely see a scenario in which Succession gets like 60% of the directing nominations.
Oh yeah,
because the White Lotus
and even the writing,
because Mike White did all of them, so that's only one nomination right there. Same with writing. White Lotus will get one in there and one in there, and that leaves a whole lot open.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Sophia, can you tell everybody out there where they can find you and all your amazing work?
Yeah, of course. I think just really quick final word on Succession that I have to say is that it made sense dramaturgically. Had to add that.
Very good.
There we go.
But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim. You can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde, on Twitter and Instagram at Oscar Wilde Pod. We release episodes every Friday. We have a Cannes recap coming out this week. My co-host Nick went to the festival this year. It was really fun to recap his experience there. And you can find my reviews on AwardsWatch. I have one that just came out on The Little Mermaid and another one coming very soon.
Yep, she will be doing the review for Across the Spider-Verse, which will come out later this week. So looking forward to that. Please go read Sophia's stuff, and then go and listen to Oscar Wilde. It's great show.
Thank you.
Tyler Doster, where can we find you and all your work on the internet?
You can find me at Tyler M. Doster on Twitter. You can find all of my work at AwardsWatch.com. I have a recent interview with Anthony Kerrigan from Barry that just came out. I have another one coming out on June 1st. It's going to be pretty big. It's going to be for Yellow Jackets, and we have even more stuff coming, other interviews, other reviews. So just be watching.
A lot of Emmy stuff. Got to follow Tyler. It's a great follow. It's one of the best follows that you'll have in your life. And yes, go read that Kerrigan interview. It was great, especially because of the series finale of Barry that just came out. Erik, where can we find you on the internet, you old bag?
I am a capriciously large old bag.
Thank you.
So let's make sure let's call it what it is.
I just want to put it on the record.
Yes. You can find me, of course, at awardswatch.com. We do have a lot of Cannes reviews and coverage you can check out, and interviews up now. I think I'll have my Brandon Scott Jones interview up by this time, but we've also got Christina Ricci and Murray Bartlett and Phil Dunster and Tawny Cypress, and a lot more coming that are really fun conversations. Twitter at awards_watch, and
you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade77. You can find my work here at awardswatch.com and various other places on the internet. Also, while you're at it, if you like to just have all of these interviews and reviews and everything sent to you via an email twice a week, hopefully if it's edited properly and put together properly, otherwise it'll be 3 times a week, you can sign up for the Awards Watch newsletter, which you can do over at awardswatch.com. It's actually really great, and it's a great way to read in all of our work that we've been doing here at the site. And we hope that you all go and do that. Next week's show, we are doing something different. We will be going back into more of the movie realm, but we won't be talking about anything that's coming out new. We'll be essentially, well, maybe we are talking about something new. I guess it is Across the Spider-Verse review next week. I was jumping ahead 2 weeks. My bad. So we are talking about Across the Spider-Verse. We're talking about our favorite non-Disney Pixar films that will be non-Disney Pixar animated films. Our top 5 for that. I was getting ahead of ourselves for 2 weeks from now, which will be a very heavy, big episode that I'm hoping all of you will really, really enjoy. But next week, Across the Spider-Verse, that is what we will talk about. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.